Hey, what's up, Exit the Matrix family? Bob here. Hope you're having a great day. Hey guys, I wanted to pick up where I left off yesterday with my video on, is it possible that humans are self-aware AI that was created by a older, highly technologically advanced civilization? And at first glance, I think to a lot of people this is like shocking and ridiculous. Their brain cannot even in any way comprehend this possibility. However, I was surprised when I posted this video link on my Facebook page. I had a few people that messaged me with that were actually, as they thought deeply into this matter, they actually kind of seen what I was talking about here. And just so you guys understand, look, I don't ascribe to this. It's just a possibility. That's all. Look, I've had people come at me before saying, oh, you're trying to force your views on people. You're trying to, this view or that view, they just kind of hammer away at me about it. And, you're not an authority on this subject or that subject. You don't write papers, white papers that get, tested by the, archaeologicals, groups or whatever, by academia. Well, folks, that's because I'm just a regular guy that researches all this stuff. And I draw my own conclusions. I create my own theories based on all of the various subjects that I have researched. Because, see, here's the thing with me, folks. I don't just study the Bible. I don't just study the Quran. I don't just study Hermetic teachings. I don't just study the Nag Hammadi Gnostic writings. I don't just study Sumerian cuneiform tablets and, Babylonian and Akkadian. I don't just study Zoroastrian. I don't just study quantum physics. I don't just study pop culture and occultic hidden messages. See, folks, I study all of these things. And a lot of these people are masters on certain subjects, are experts on it, because they put all their sole focus and research into one field. And some of these people are amazing. There's a lot of people out there, even scientists and even mainstream archaeologists, that do amazing work. Irving Finkel, for one. I believe he's with the British Museum. Amazing guy. Look at some of his talks, his teachings. He was one that found one of the cuneiform tablets, or at least he made it public, that the ark was not shaped like the biblical ark that Christians think. That it was actually more of a circular type boat that was completely covered over. It was more similar to how they built boats back then, which would make sense, right? Instead of like some new design no, they just built a gigantic version of what they normally built, and then they were able to make it where it could keep the water out. It was completely covered and sealed. So there are experts in these fields, and they specialize in one thing or two things, and that's great. Research what, follow what they do, their work. But, what I do is I take some of what they teach and, but then I also connect it to hundreds of other fields that I research, including UFOs and, spiritual realm and all these things. See, I don't just pigeonhole myself in one corner of study. And so you got to understand, I am not an expert in any one of these fields. However, I'm, in layman's terms, I'm a kind of purveyor of all of these fields. And that is just where I resonate. That is my ability on earth. Trust me, folks, I wasn't born with a lot of great abilities like some people. But for some reason, organization and connecting dots and being able to zoom out from above and look down and connect dots from a different perspective has been one of my abilities, I guess, that the creator of all bestowed upon me, to at least be an awakened ability in this state. So just understand, folks, a lot of these theories that I bring to you guys, I am not hanging my hat on any of these, because I understand new knowledge comes forth and things change. So we're constantly, new ancient texts are constantly being uncovered. Ancient sites are constantly being uncovered. That's pushing our thinking back further and further. I mean, there's new Tepe ruins now being uncovered in Turkey that are much older than even Göbekli Tepe. So, and there's some amazing discoveries around Lake Van that some other researchers in the field of ancient history and such are delving into. You may know Matthew LaCroix, Billy Carson. They're a couple on this project, and they're all working together. And I believe Brian Forster was one of them. He does a lot of stuff on like the Incans, and Mayan and Aztecs ruins, and Mesoamerica and such. And Paul Wallace, he used to be a pastor, and now he researches, these biblical teachings that actually point towards a technologically advanced civilization or people that came here and messed with humankind, essentially. So just understand, folks, that, there is a lot right now that is being uncovered, and because of the internet and the connection of humans all around the world, this information is being more easily passed around. And yes, they are trying to control this information. We obviously are aware of that, but they can't stop it all. It's like a dike with holes all over it. They can only stick their fingers in so many holes, right? So just understand this, folks. Okay, I just wanted to lay that groundwork because, I'm not claiming to have all the answers, okay? I want you to know that. Don't ever come to me asking me about questions about the absolute truth and all that, because I don't know it, folks. I'm just on a path of discovery. I'm on the hero's journey trying to figure these things out and survive this world at the same time, because it is a great mystery. It's like unraveling a game, a mystery in a video game. So anyways, guys, I want to get back to this, and it's all right. I may not get to everything I want to today. This may be a 3-4 part talk that I'm going to do on this, because the more I start delving into this in my mind, the more and more I keep finding these connections, and it's just a little scary, to be honest, folks, because I don't want to think that my lineage goes back to a time when humankind was created as a slave worker race and an artificially created race, or at least genetically modified race, and that possibly our consciousness wasn't solely organic. However, I think that even that we can work the kinks out in that. So I'm not, even if this is all true, I want you to understand, I'm not saying that we are not spiritual beings, that we are not conscious energy operating these human avatars. I'm just saying that in the far past, it could be possible that we were created as some kind of worker race, as some kind of an AI, by an advanced race. So just kind of understand where I'm coming from on this, people. Let's just play with it, okay? If this is too scary for you, then that's fine, because we're going deep. we're going to go deep on all this. And this is very scary when you can think about the implications of it. So let's go back to where I left off yesterday. We were in the Garden of Eden, right? And of course, as you know, there's the Genesis version of the Garden of Eden, where you have the Old Testament biblical God. At least I want to make this clear, because most Christians do not understand that there are multiple gods in the Old Testament, okay? This is absolutely biblical here I'm talking, okay? Now, I know theologians try to wrap up all of these names of God into one entity. Folks, it is not. In fact, most of the main Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian Anunnaki or Anuna hierarchy, their deities, most of those higher ranking deities are the gods in the Bible, and they're even named in the Bible, folks. So if you think I'm just, playing off of words or something here, I'm not. It's some of these Anuna, or Anunnaki, as you know more by the mainstream name, and there's even some other variations of the name that these deities were called. They are in the Bible, and they're in the cuneiform tablets. They're in both, and they're in the Egyptian. And I hate to use this mythology, because mythology, it's like spelling. It's like a spell. It like tricks your mind into thinking, oh, it's a myth. It's not real. It's a story. I want you to understand, folks, I only say like Egyptian mythology because, I don't know, it's the easiest way to explain it, but I want you to understand, look, just because it's called a mythology doesn't mean it's not based in truth, okay? So, just like any ancient religion, it's always a mixture of allegories, astrotheology, sun worship, and Anunnaki worship. So just understand that. It don't matter what religion. I can point out any religion you bring to me, I can show you exactly who the archetypes are based off of. So, we got the Garden of Eden in Genesis, and we got the Garden of Eden in the Sumerian cuneiform tablets. Well, let's look at those. Let's look at the Genesis one first. Elohim. El is God. Elohim is multiple gods or gods. Now, theologians try to say that, well, Elohim was calling himself that because it was the Trinity. See, it was the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? Which, come on, people, right? The Holy Spirit is the mother. Okay, let's wake up, folks. The Holy Spirit, the Comforter, is the mother. Wake up. Smell the coffee. Let's quit with this male-dominated religious garbage, okay, people? The Trinity has always been the Father, the Mother, and the child. And the Son, it's always usually said the Son, not the daughter, because the Son is always the one that carries on, in most traditions, the family line, is like the head of the family if something happens to the father, okay? So understand, that's why the Son is always mentioned. And not only that, the Son that enlightens, the Son, get it? Sun worship, the sun over our heads. The Creator's Son, his Son, anyways, folks, we'll get into astrotheology another day. I'm bad about going down side roads, okay? I'm going to try to stay focused here. And I know I'm bad about that. And I hope those of you that have listened to me at this point for a few videos understand kind of how I work. But just understand, this is how my mind works, and I try to reel it back in. So, okay. So we got Elohim in the Bible. Plural. Elohim, plural. Go look at your King James version of the Bible. Go look at most versions of the Bible. And it will say, come. And this is not exactly verbatim scripture. I'm driving my car right now, folks. But this is essentially what it says. Come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Elohim, plural. Now, if you go look up the meanings of Elohim, it's more than just like God. It can mean shining ones, powerful ones, rulers. Are you getting this? Now, when you think of it in that text, does that really sound like that is the creator of all, of everything that you cast your eyes or your senses on? That all of this is of this creator of all. Does that sound like the creator of all? Think about this, people. Think deeply on this. It's not that hard. Some of you would say, oh yes. Oh yeah, that was God walking in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. Folks, you have to understand that Hebrews, or at least who, they claim to be Hebrews. That's another thing for another day also. These people that wrote the Old Testament, they had access to vast libraries at cuneiform that was written in Akkadian, in Babylonian, in Sumerian, in Assyrian, in the Arata, and even older Mesopotamian writings. And these were the scholars and the scribes of these Hebrew or Israelite people, the Judeans. And when they were captured in Babylon, Babylon protected their hierarchy, which usually the scribe or priest class were protected along with the ruling class. They were collaterals in war. I mean, this is how this works, people. Sometimes they kill the other monarchs and the leaders and such, but a lot of times they would capture them and use them as bargaining chips and blackmail and, to unite kingdoms and such, to subjugate their people. So understand this. Now, these scribes of the Judeans, they had access to these libraries, and they read these cuneiform. They were probably taught by the Babylonians how to decipher some of these writings. And then they took those stories and they made their own story, but yet they made themselves the chosen ones, the heroes in the story. This will upset a lot of you, and I kind of hope it does, because if you're still living in this ignorance and you believe that there's a chosen race on earth, you're ridiculous. Do you really think the creator of all, that created all humans, chose one little group of people to be his chosen people? If you believe that, folks, my gosh, you're ignorant and completely brainwashed. So you look at this Yahweh character walking in the Garden of Eden. He comes upon Adam and Eve. He finds out that they just ate from the tree of knowledge. The tree of knowledge. Now, this is an allegory, people. It's not a damn apple. And guess what? I'll blow your mind more for those of you that read the Bible literally. The serpent in the Garden of Eden, the serpent that seduced Eve and Adam, was not a snake. It was not Lucifer in a snake form. It was not the devil in a snake form. People, the serpent was Enki, the brother of Enlil. Enlil is Yahweh. Enki was the serpent. These were the two families, the eagle and the serpent. The two brothers that were at war with each other. Their father, Anu, was, guess what? There's a name for him in the Bible. El Elyon, the Most High. Yes, Anu was the highest ranking Anunnaki. You could call him the king of the Anunnaki. And he was not of this world. He did not reside on earth. But his sons were on earth. And they had their own factions, their own families. And their families were at war with each other. It was a power struggle over who would control earth and its resources. And eventually it's humans. So you had the eagle family and the serpent family represented in the Garden of Eden. Well, Yahweh sees that Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge. The tree of knowledge, folks, is an allegory. It's that they became self-aware. Now, this doesn't have to mean that they were AI and became self-aware, but it means that they became aware that they were these conscious beings or entities, and that Enki gave them the knowledge. The serpent gave them the knowledge of good and evil and of reality. And once they realized that they were these living beings and that they'd seen that this serpent was clothed, and so was this Yahweh character strolling through the garden was clothed, they wanted to be clothed too. They wanted to be just like the Anunnaki. They wanted to be just like these two characters in the Garden of Eden. Now, some people say that the seducing was that Enki, or the serpent, had sex with Eve. And to be honest, there's actually probably a lot of truth in that too. And imagine the awakening you would have as being a new creature, and all of a sudden you are given into the pleasures of the flesh, of sex. Let's be real. Probably the most powerful energy in your life is sexual energy. It pulls from your very being. That's why you have practices like Tantra and such that learn how to cultivate this energy. You have the Kundalini energy that you hear about. And it's all a practice of manipulating that sexual energy that pents up within you that has to release. And there's ways you can control it, and they call it sex magic. Okay? That's where all this comes from. But even those of you that may not believe in all that, when you're with your wife or your husband and you reach that, that climatic state, especially when you both do it at the same time, that is an extremely powerful force of energy that is released into the quantum field. It is almost like a Big Bang, so to speak. No pun intended. So there's many different things we can look at about what this tree of knowledge was. But it was not a damn apple, folks. I mean, some of you that just read these ancient books and stories, and you read it like it's just a straight up read story. You take it for face value. You are so ignorant of symbolism and allegories. I mean, that's how they used to teach back then, because people were simple-minded. Most people could not read or write. Up until the last 100 years, folks, most of humanity on Earth could not read or write. The scribe, the priest class, and the ruling class were always those that were learned, that were taught to read and write, because it gave them power over the peasants. And this was the same in biblical times. So these stories were written in ways that they could be taught as allegories, so they could be passed orally on from person to person. So the common man, hopefully, if they had a couple of brain cells they could rub together, could figure out that these were allegorical stories. Okay? And they could figure out how they incorporate it into their own life. It was easier for them to learn. It was like painting a picture in a story. So, okay. And I'm not trying to put anybody down, folks. Some people do irritate me a little bit. And it is what it is. Everybody's got their... Trust me, I know I irritate people a lot. I hear that I talk in too much monotone and use too many filler words, like and such. And forgive me, I'm trying to get better about that, and I hope I am. Everything takes practice, right? The more you do this, the better you get at it. So here comes old Yahweh strolling into the garden. He sees what the serpent has done, and he kicks Adam and Eve and the serpent out of the Garden of Eden. Now you might question, well, why was the serpent, Satan, Lucifer, God's arch enemy, even in the Garden of Eden to begin with? Well, folks, because they're brothers. And because brothers quarrel and they strive against each other sometimes. Some of your biggest feuds are family feuds. Wars have been fought between families. Bloodshed between families. So, but sometimes families still get along. Sometimes it's politically expedient that they get along with each other. Or at least they can be in the same area of each other. But the Sumerian version of this is in much more detail. It explains it's these two brothers in the Garden of Eden. And they were the two highest ranking Anunnaki. They were the sons of Anu and their mother Ki. You wonder where Anunnaki comes from, folks. Anu, heaven. Ki, earth. Gaia, you could call her. Anunnaki. It's not that hard to figure out, folks. For those of you that don't think Anunnaki is in the Sumerian cuneiform, it absolutely is. Now, it's a amalgamation of Anu and his wife Ki, of the grandfather and the mother, the king and the queen, and their two sons. And of course, their daughter, because they had... See, those of you that believe angels are only males are... Oh my God, wake up, people. Oh, they're only males. Only angels are males. God only created male angels. Like, that's the most ridiculous shit on earth, people. Come on. That's the most ridiculous shit in heaven. This... See, in a way, the Sumerians were more intelligent than these Judeans because they at least understood of the power of the divine feminine. They didn't just make it about the divine masculine. No, they understood that there was a balance in heaven and on earth, as above, so below. So, yes, Ki was important too. And she was high-ranking because she was the mother queen. This is not hard to figure out, folks, when you put it together. The Sumerians, their hierarchy had females that were highly ranked, gods or demigods, whatever you want to call them, deities. And their sister, between the two quarreling brothers, they had a sister named, that I mentioned the other day, named Ninmah. That's where the word mama comes from. Ninmah. She's known as Isis in the Egyptian pantheon. She also had a hand in the creation of Adam and Eve. She was the one who carried Adam and Eve in her womb. Because the first prototypes of humans that Enki and Ninmah were working on were like clones, and they had a lot of physical disabilities and they couldn't procreate. Adam and Eve were the first prototype humans that could procreate. Imagine this. You create a worker class, an organic, robotic, AI created being that it becomes self-aware and it can procreate. Now you have workers that can procreate. You don't have to keep cloning. You don't have to keep carrying them in your womb. They'll start carrying each other in the wombs, right? Now there is talk that the Anunnaki, because it's interesting, for Adam and Eve to be created, in the Sumerian version, they had to sacrifice one of their own, one of the Anunnaki, and give them the spirit essence to empower this Adam and Eve. Which is quite a bit different than the biblical version where God took the rib out of Adam, right, and created Eve from the rib bone of Adam, right? Now, I want to bring up some real quick before I go, folks. And I'm sorry I didn't get real far. We're going to keep going with this. This may take a few days, but I hope you're enjoying this talk because this is some deep stuff. Some of the most potent mitochondrial DNA you can find in the human body can be found in the bones. In the rib bone would be a fantastic place to source this DNA. So it's interesting that even in the Bible there is a little bit of a little bit of a clue there that kind of points us to what was going on in this Garden of Eden, and that this rib bone, the mitochondria DNA, was extracted, and it could have been used to clone Eve. And then, of course, those embryos were carried in the womb of Ninmah, Mama, of the sister that was usually caught between the quarreling of the two brothers. And she was the first one that brought forth the human avatar onto earth through her womb. And that first Adam and Eve, also known as Adapa or Adamu in the Sumerian, or Tiamat. And I always forget the name of dang, I should have looked this up yesterday. But anyway, there's also another name for Eve. But we'll just ride with the biblical version of Adam and Eve. And those were these first prototypes that could procreate. And not only that, they were highly advanced. And they were more advanced than this Yahweh character wanted. He just wanted a worker class that was just smart enough to take orders, but not smart enough to think and reason, because that was a threat to them. And we're going to go into this deeper tomorrow, folks. Wow, there's so much to uncover and unpackage here. But I think the biggest takeaway from today is understand this. Yahweh and the serpent, Enlil and Enki, and you had the female in there, Ninmah, also known as Ninhursag, also known as Isis, was involved in this process. And we touched last time on the tree of life a little bit. We're going to go into that a little more maybe tomorrow. And just understand, folks, this was all an allegory of human beings, at least the human avatar. Now, I'm not saying that our spirits don't choose to come inhabit these avatar bodies, these human bodies in this dimension. Like I touched on just a little bit ago here, in the Sumerian version, they had to sacrifice one of their own Anunnaki. Not one of these hierarchy, these bloodline Anunnaki, one of the working class Anunnaki. They sacrificed this one, and they used his essence and mixed it, get this, mixed it with the clay of the earth. Remember, God created man and women from clay. If you look at, the Greek versions of this also, like almost like humans were created almost like clay pots, and filled with the essence of life. It's all the same story, folks. But it's becoming quite apparent that there was some kind of technologically advanced genetic work going on the earth in this time, and that humans were a byproduct of that, at least a hybridized version of that. And this is really hard for us to come to terms with. Trust me, this is hard for me. I want to believe the biblical story that we're all the magic that we just came from Adam's, women came from Adam's, his rib, and and there's just this struggle between these two, bloodlines of Cain and Abel, and Satan and God and all this. And essentially, it's kind of along the same lines as the Sumerian version. It's like Reader's Digest version of the truth. If you really want to know what the Bible is, it's Reader's Digest version of these ancient Sumerian and Akkadian and such cuneiform. And once again, I will stand on this. You can do all the research you want. A lot of you Christians out there and Judeans believe that your books were written in real time. Oh yes, scribes were following God around and writing down what he wanted, or God was speaking through him and they were writing all this. And these scribes, the Levites, the priest class, they were just all documenting all this, Moses and all these stories as they were happening. Folks, most of the Old Testament wasn't even written anywhere past 500 BC. There's a very few little fragments and sources that have been pushed past 500 BC. Most of your New Testament was written, 100 to 300 years AD, and a lot of your Old Testament was written AD. Okay? Understand this. Now, when you try to go up and say that's the ultimate truth, but yet these other stories are all just demonic, Satan wrote all these trying to trick people and such. I hear this all the time. Absolutely ridiculous, folks. The cuneiform writings go back as far as close to 5000 BC. Maybe there is some that are even older than that. And you're trying to compare that to a 500 BC writing? Come on, folks. It's time to wake up. It's time to smell the dog crap. And let's start really uncovering what all this is about, okay? It's time to grow up. And it's time to start caring about our true past. And I think once we can unwrap that, maybe the future will make more sense, and maybe the whole reason of why this world is the way it is will make more sense. So anyways, hey guys, I appreciate you guys. I will talk to you later.